Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for joining us today for our virtual Smart Growth Subcabinet Public Forum. I'm Wendy Peters, and I serve as the chair of the Smart Growth Subcabinet. The Subcabinet is required by statute to meet twice a year with county, municipal elected leaders, and planning officials to discuss local government issues relating to activities that affect smart growth, development, neighborhood conservation, and resource management. As you know, we usually conduct this winter forum at the Mako Winter Conference, but due to COVID, we're holding the forum virtually. As you join us today, I hope that you're safe, warm, and healthy. The last year has been challenging for everyone. But as Governor Hogan advised yesterday, with vaccine distribution now beginning in our state, we've finally reached a turning point. And I'm sure that with Governor Hogan's leadership and the dedicated work of my colleagues across the administration, that we will get through this together. We remain vigilant and committed to recovery across our state for our families, our businesses, and our communities. We continue our work to provide better access to resources across all state agencies. And to that end, I'm pleased to be joined today by the secretaries or their designees from the 14 state agencies that make up the Smart Growth Subcabinet. Before we get started, I want to orient you with GoToWebinar features. I'm sure by now we've all had many GoToWebinars, but just to be clear, if you have a question for any of the speakers, you can submit it at any time using the question prompt on your screen. There is a tool there in the control panel located on the right side of your screen. We will have a question and answer session following each presentation. After our presentations, we'll move into an open Q&A, the public forum aspect of it, for our municipal and county elected officials, as well as planning officials. Once again, please submit your questions or comments using the questions tool on the control bar. We're scheduled to go to about 3, but we'll close the virtual forum early if we have no additional questions or comments. Again, thank you very much for being here with us today. And I'd like to introduce my colleague, the Secretary from the Department of Planning, Rob McCord, to talk a little bit about what planning is doing with regard to Maryland's roadmap to recovery.
All right, thank you very much, Secretary Peters. Trying to get my camera on, there we go. Thank you again, Secretary Peters. Planning has been busy. We'd like to begin this, as I do most forums, by thanking every state agency and every local government partner for all the help they provided during the census process to put us in the top 10 in the country. Appreciate that. And now I'm already getting questions about when are the numbers going to be available. You have redistricting committees forming at the councilmanic level and in county governments. And so just to let you know that we will give you the numbers as soon as we get them and do our process of reallocating the prisoners. Under Maryland law, we reallocate prisoners to their last known address prior to incarceration. That process will give us adjusted numbers, which are the numbers that we will use for the process of redistricting in our state. So the numbers are due by the U.S. Census Bureau to the president by December 31st. They've indicated they will overshoot that deadline by just a little bit. How much they will miss the deadline, we're not sure. But as soon as we get the numbers, we are prepared to do our work on the numbers so that we can get the numbers out to the local jurisdictions. We have, at planning, along with lots of other state agencies, been providing support to get grant money out to local businesses and doing what we can to support the efforts of the other state agencies. The Maryland Heritage Areas Authority has done its own emergency grants, and we are now supplying some support, personnel support, to the health department to make sure their next stage of the long process they've been involved in with COVID can continue to happen as we enter this vaccination stage. We have an exciting collaboration with the Department of Commerce on bringing a military planner to keep our bases strong and viable as we keep the surrounding communities compatible for the long run. We want the bases and the installations to grow as the communities grow, and we want each to thrive. So that process, we've hired a military planner, and we're working to make sure the joint land use study for the entire state can be implemented, and we make sure that we have that good contact with each of those installations across the entire state. We have also been continuing our webinar series. Our last webinar had 1,600 people sign up for it, so we try to put latest and greatest topics and try to have thought and the current ideas presented so that people can get credit for their accreditation, and that's been very successful. And as always, our regional planners, they remain responsive and they provide answers to enable projects to keep moving forward throughout the entire state. So at planning, we're working hard and working virtually, and thank you for the opportunity to let everyone know what's going on in planning.
Okay, thank you, Secretary McCord. Now from the Department of Agriculture, we have Michelle Cable, the Executive Director of MALF, who will give us an update from Ag.
There we go. Now I'm unmuted. Sorry about that. This is my first WebEx for the subcabinet. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. As Secretary Peter said, my name is Michelle Cable, and I am representing Secretary Bartenfelder for the Department of Agriculture. He does extend his regrets for not being able to participate today. I'm pleased to provide a brief update on agricultural's part in the roadmap to recovery. The Maryland Farmer COVID-19 Relief Program offered payments to contract poultry growers and bonus payments to farmers who receive funding from the USDA's Coronavirus Food Assistance Program 1. To date, the department has paid $1.98 million to contract poultry growers and $2.79 million in the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program bonus payments. These funds have been distributed to a total of 1,324 Maryland farm families. The application deadline for this program was December 1st, so the final batch of mailed-in applications are still currently being processed. And that is our update for agriculture.
Great, thank you very much. We'll now move on to Commerce, and representing Secretary Kelly Schultz is Jim Palma.
Hello, this is Jim Palmer. I just wanted to give out some information on what is going on with our COVID-19 funding, which is almost done at this point. In case you're not aware, the federal government had the CARES Act, which gave us in multiple agencies across the state funds to give out for various reasons. Commerce got about $189 million in total to give out in grants and loans. And if you've been following this, the governor himself has just announced that those loans will be converted to grants in the new year. So they will all become loans. We are also giving money directly to local governments so that they can push it into restaurants and other, actually that's the restaurants, I'm sorry. And that is rainy day funds. We also were given another $50 million to give out as rainy day funds as grants. So we have been pushing a lot of money out very quickly to businesses, to nonprofits in conjunction with DHCD, and to local governments to assist their restaurant programs. In addition, yes, our Office of Military and Federal Affairs is working with the Department of Planning and the Department of Energy to assist in base siting issues and energy siting issues. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Now from the Department of General Services, Assistant Secretary Wendy Scott Napier. Do we have the microphone worked out? Okay, bear with us for a moment. John,
I'm sorry, Secretary Peters, I'm here.
No worries, good. Well, thank you for joining us.
Did not realize I was self-unmuting. I thought it was being done for me.
No problem.
Thank you. I'm here on behalf of Secretary Churchill to provide several updates on what General Services is doing. In the procurement area, we are continuing to support the Department of Health and our other sister agencies to procure services, supplies, and equipment needed to combat the virus. In the facilities area, we are continuing to ensure that state facilities are thoroughly cleaned, that the mask requirements and social distance measures are enforced. And we're also implementing a thermal scanning process that we're testing out in Annapolis before the session begins to hopefully scan visitors as they're coming through state buildings. In the real estate area, again, continuing to work with the Department of Health and also with local governments. Now that we're gearing up for the vaccinations, we have Anne Arundel County reaching out to see if they can set up operations in Annapolis on some of our state-owned and leased facilities as well. Under the area of our federal surplus program, we continue to receive items from the federal government that we're distributing to food banks, local governments, such as food and water stores. Finally, we are also offering support, staff support on the vaccination effort that's being undertaken by the Department of Health. And that's all I have today. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. We'll now hear from the Department of Health, Acting Deputy Secretary of Operations, Chief Chowdhury.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Great. Yes, thank you.
Thanks. Thanks. I'm attending on behalf of Secretary Schrader, who gives his regards for not being able to attend. Just wanted to give everyone a very quick update on what's going on. Obviously, Health Department is very intimately involved in the state's COVID-19 response. We're taking a lead effort. And we've been coordinating with, I believe, if not every single state agency on this call, but the vast majority of state agencies across the board. So everyone's aware, we've been operating basically in an ICS, which is a FEMA-based incident command structure, which is called the Unified Command, which permits all state agencies to operate under a unified command where you have different people from different state agencies assisting and doing various tasks under a single command structure in order to streamline operations and processes to help facilitate goals. So we've been working since the very beginning. A large number of the vast majority of the funding we've been spending has been the CARES funding, which will be expiring at the end of this calendar year. We've been setting up alternate care sites and advanced medical tents, as well as field hospital, to really ensure that every mailander that needs a hospital bed will have access to a hospital bed. And we've been acquiring PPE to ensure that healthcare workers and vaccinators have the PPE that they need when they need it. And we've also acquired a sufficient supply of ventilators to ensure that every mailander that needs a ventilator will have access to one. We've been setting up testing sites throughout the state to ensure that we exponentially expand testing, where we went at one point from 50 tests a day to now we've actually reached over 60,000 tests per day. And we're developing bridge teams for nursing homes to address outbreaks for the most vulnerable population across the state. We're also coordinating the monoclonal antibody treatment of COVID-19 patients, which is an IV-based infused treatment. And obviously the hot button issue for today, or what's happening now current in the news, is a distribution and administration of the COVID-19 vaccinations. So a lot of effort on our part on a lot of different moving pieces. We have spent over $1 billion in various procurements, and for the various things I've talked about. And that's continuing on. One of the major things is staffing. It's been an issue for us. The governor has expressed, the need to recruit additional healthcare workers, just given the need going forward and the projected need throughout the flu season. We are happy to report that out of our $1 billion in spending, about a third of that has gone to Maryland firms. So a lot of these have been emergency procurements and some have been non-emergency procurements, but out of $1 billion, 1/3 of the spending has gone to Maryland-based firms. And we're also setting up, ensuring that we've got sufficient supplies, staffing, PPE, et cetera, to last us through flu season and beyond. And as we're going into vaccine distribution, obviously, healthcare workers and residents and staff of long-term nursing care facilities, long-term care facilities are sort of the first priority, and then sort of we will trickle down to the general public as we move forward. We're getting allocations of the Pfizer vaccine currently. Moderna will be coming very soon, and we anticipate approximately 155,000 doses coming forthright. And just so that everyone's clear, the federal government is dispersing 155,000 doses to Maryland. They are holding back the second dose because all these are 2-dose vaccines. So the other 155,000 are being held back by the federal government, will be distributed on an as-needed basis. So we're working with our partners, acute care hospitals, nursing homes, pharmacies, et cetera, to ensure timely distribution and administration. And as things ramp up, we will get additional vaccines throughout the state in the coming months, and hope to have everyone vaccinated very soon, and hope to be in a great place, hopefully in the next few months, where at least we can see the light at the end of the tunnel at this point. So thank you. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for that update. I'd now like to turn to the Department of Housing and Community Development with Assistant Secretary Carol Gilbert.
Thank you, Secretary Peters. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, very good. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm just going to have a brief overview of the funds that we've been entrusted with, which are over $140 million in economic relief and recovery funding for local governments, nonprofits, and businesses. Several programs that folks are very familiar with, like Community Development Block Grant, Community Services Block Grant, and Emergency Solutions Block Grant, were exponentially increased through the CARES Act funding. And those funds are primarily going to the most vulnerable populations for safety and food assistance and rental assistance. In particular, out of the $25 million in CDBG funding, $20 million of that is going to local governments to supplement their or create their rental assistance relief programs. We are also working in collaboration with the Department of Commerce to deploy $50 million in nonprofit relief funds, and those funds have reached 1,800 nonprofits statewide. Most recently, the governor announced an additional $25 million through the Maryland Strong Economic Recovery Initiative in its allocation to DHCD to focus on larger nonprofits that have a substantial impact on tourism and therefore economic development in Maryland. Also on for-profit entertainment venues and promoters that complement and fuel that economic impact in tourism, and also on our 41 main streets, statewide main streets. We have 41 both statewide and in the city of Baltimore. Of that 41, 8 are in the city of Baltimore, and they are setting up small business relief funds with that funding. Overall, the governor has allocated more than $30 million in funding for rental relief, and that is going forward in 2 tracks. The one track I mentioned with CDBG funding is allocated directly to local governments to enhance their own programs. And then another track of $15 million is being deployed by our housing finance arm called the Community Development Administration. And they are funding complexes that they have financed as to maintain affordability, and this funding will enhance the stability of residents in those lower income housing developments. We've also deployed 50 volunteers from DHCD across the last 10 months to various agencies that had surges in staffing needs, including Commerce and Department of Labor. And I want to thank all the volunteers, particularly from the Department of Planning, but across all state agencies that have helped us deploy both the Nonprofit Recovery Initiative and the Maryland Strong Economic Recovery Initiative. We've had more than 75 volunteers help DHC deploy those programs. So thank you very much, and a happy holidays to all.
Thank you very much. Now move on to the Department of Labor and Assistant Secretary Jim Ripkowski.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jim Ripkowski, Assistant Secretary of Labor. On behalf of myself and Labor Secretary Tiffany Robinson, I just wanted to give you a quick update on one of our projects on the roadmap to recovery. That is our layoff aversion program. While labor is the home of Maryland Occupational Safety and Health, of course, unemployment insurance, occupational professional licensing, financial regulation, and the Racing Commission, again, I'm just going to highlight our layoff aversion program, whose focus was to provide small businesses with the critical financial assistance they needed to change their business models to avert closure, avoid laying off employees, all while promoting safe practices and social distancing to slow the spread of COVID-19. In March of this year, we were awarded $10 million in order to administer the layoff aversion program, and we were able to assist 445 businesses who had an average of around 20 employees, and we saved about 9,000 jobs. We had grant recipients in 20 diverse industry sectors, ranging from healthcare to retail to hospitality, in all 24 jurisdictions in Maryland. The need was great, so the governor then, in October of this year, gave us an additional $20 million to have a second round of the layoff aversion program, and we kicked that off on October 28th. To date, on that second round, we've approved 791 business applications totaling a little over $20 million. We received a total of 1,099 applications, requesting a total of almost $36 million. Obviously, we only have 20, and businesses did request some things that weren't eligible. So we will certainly hit that 20 million, and we have closed the application process. So in total, in closing, we assisted about 1,100 businesses that were funded. Over 20,000 jobs were saved, which means that there were 20,000 less unemployment insurance claimants, and 20,000 families with wages and benefits that would have otherwise been in jeopardy. That's it for the Department of Labor. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Now we'll move on to the Department of Natural Resources, and representing Secretary Jeannie Hadaway-Riccio is Assistant Secretary Phil Hager.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Wendy. I appreciate that. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Great. The Department of Natural Resources has been doing their best to provide normal operations and expected services in a world that is far from normal. One of the things that this pandemic has shown is the importance of outdoor recreation and outdoor resources, and the need for our residents to get outside and experience the natural environment. We've seen this vividly demonstrated at our state forests, our wildlife management areas, and our waterways. Nowhere, perhaps, has this been more prominently displayed than at our parks. The parks have been incredibly busy. We've broken all kinds of records. We've had nearly 300 capacity-related closures. In a year's time, we typically get around 100. And just recently, we passed the 20 million visitor mark, up about 4,000 from our highest previous record. DNR has also been involved in supporting our seafood industry, which has taken a particularly hard hit during this pandemic. We're pleased to be able to provide these services in these challenging times, all while continuing to provide the services expected of us, such as forestry, fisheries management, the Chesapeake Bay programs, land conservation, hunting and fishing, natural resource law enforcement, boating safety, and of course, the geological survey. We appreciate having an opportunity to participate in today's meeting, and that's it for us today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that information. Moving on to the Department of Transportation, representing Secretary Slater is Deputy Secretary Earl Lewis.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. COVID-19 has effectively changed the way we do business. We've seen the impacts of COVID-19 across our transportation system, from travel volumes to our budget numbers to our day-to-day operations. Since the pandemic began, we have seen drastic decreases in travel across our transportation network. For example, at BWI, travel was down 97% year over year at the peak of the stay-at-home order in April. Now we're down 64%. Transit ridership was down 77% during the peak of the stay-at-home order, compared to 62% now. Traffic on our highways was down 52% compared to being down 20% now. Those decreases in travel resulted in a devastating hit to our transportation trust fund, which relies on fuel taxes, tolling fees, and other transportation revenues to fund our capital and operating budgets. We're talking revenue declines in the hundreds of millions of dollars across our system. Those revenue declines are going to have long-lasting effects on our transportation system. We'll have to prioritize where we spend our dollars. As a result, Marylanders may see taller grass, poor aesthetics, and things like that. Maryland DOT is unique in that we deal with travel by land, sea, or air, so we have had to be flexible in our approach to meet the needs of each. We know the services we provide are critical to the economic recovery of the state, as well as getting our healthcare and other essential workers to their jobs. Transportation also plays a critical role in keeping the supply chain moving from our port and airport to our highways and toll facilities. While we're facing unprecedented challenges, we're lucky that our workforce has been so quick and ready to adapt. Our ability to adapt will be critical to our success as we move forward through this pandemic. In terms of quickly adapting the workforce to the new environment, we set up about 1/3 of our 10,000 member department for telework. Anyone that can telework is teleworking. Many of the remaining 2/3 of those, like our highway maintenance forces, bus operators, and others whose roles are 100% in the field. We acquired distributed technology, including computers and VPNs, 5,000 VPN licenses, 400 laptops, adapted paper-based process to electronic. This was the focus of our procurement and finance teams. M.SHA created a paperless task force squarely focused on this issue. As part of this, invoices were converted to an electronic process in order to provide prompt payment to contractors, which was much needed to support them through the height of the pandemic. This is a practice, though, that we will be looking to continue in the future due to its efficiency. We worked with our legal and finance teams to create digital signature approval processes. M.MVA established an avenue for call center employees to be able to take calls from home. M.MVA also transitioned their entire back-end systems in July, and that has created more opportunities for motor services to be conducted through telework. Public meetings were conducted virtually to continue to gather input from the community to advance construction projects. This also included our annual constitutionally mandated tour of our counties to provide an update on our capital program. That's a CTP tour, marking the first time in our state's history we have done this. Regarding our frontline workers, while we are able to get a significant portion of our workforce teleworking, a lot of our functions, including running the Port of Baltimore, BWI Marshall Airport, and transit in Baltimore City, require employees to be on the ground. We have supported our frontline workers with a robust program to protect them and our customers. We developed strong relationships with the Maryland Department of Health to ensure we were adapting to the evolving best practices coming out of the medical field. All employees have been provided face coverings, and they continue to be provided with hand sanitizer, disinfectant wipes and spray, gloves, and anything else that they would need. Face coverings are required within all facilities and outside when social distancing cannot be maintained. Facilities have been modified to increase the capacity for social distancing. All facilities perform a brief health screening of employees, customers, or visitors prior to entering in order to deny any that might have COVID-19 related symptoms or had recent contact with COVID-19. All facilities and services have enhanced cleaning and disinfecting consistent with CDC guidelines, which include twice daily cleaning of disinfecting of high touch points and lightly enhanced cleaning, disinfecting of the whole facility. For instance, BWI Marshall receives a nightly enhanced cleaning through fogging. In addition, our facilities have reviewed and enhanced our air filtration capabilities where possible. We've also established workplace contact tracing programs at each of our TBUs to ensure we are mitigating potential exposure to the best of our abilities. We continue to strongly communicate to our employees the CDC best practices they should be following, not only at the workplace, but at home. Our team are also working closely with the Maryland Department of Health on the logistics of the hospital surge task force and testing needed throughout the state. In conclusion, our transportation system is facing unprecedented challenges. Despite these challenges, our vision for transportation hasn't changed. We're continuing to push to do more with less. The driving factor in delivering these improvements to our communities is an effective workforce. As we look beyond this pandemic, I believe that telework will continue to play a key role in how our workforce performs, even if it is in more of a hybrid environment. This pandemic has proved to us that telework can work in our industry. In effect, it's created efficiencies in some of our processes. In addition, we have also found efficiencies in the processing of payments that we feel will be important to carry on to the future, and this will help us improve our partnership with the private sector. I will also continue to stress the importance of the mental health of our team. I think most of us can understand that there will be lingering impacts coming out of this, and so we must be prepared to support our teams with the best resources that we can. Overall, while this pandemic has prompted us to adapt, I wouldn't be prouder and couldn't be prouder of what our team has accomplished under these tough conditions, and I look forward to our continued success. And I would like to say that Greg Slater was planning to be here today, but had something come up and was not able to make it. And he's really proud of the MDOT team and how well we're working with our partners across state government and our other stakeholders in dealing with this really unprecedented situation that we're in. So thanks.
Thank you very much for that update. And as far as agency presentations, our final update comes from Director Michael Higgs from the Department of Assessments and Taxation.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to share what SDAT has been doing to help keep Maryland open for business and provide much needed relief to Maryland's homeowners, property owners, and renters in light of COVID-19. To enhance our customer service efforts, SDAT launched its call center back in January, and the timing couldn't have been better with COVID right around the corner. When the state initiated teleworking, this team was our first to adjust to the new technologies needed to answer calls remotely, and currently is teleworking 100% of the time. Since January 1st, they've received 111,569 calls. In April, we consolidated a development process that could have taken years into 1 month in order to release 15 new online filing options that businesses needed the most during the pandemic, and especially to apply for PPP loans. So far in 2020, we've received more than 150,000 online filings. That's 75% more than in 2019. We've helped more than 10,000 businesses revive to continue operating in the state this year, and more than 5,000 of those were done completely online. For the first 6 months of the PPP loan period, we eliminated expedited fees for filings to make it cheaper and easier for businesses to obtain those PPP loans. 5,102 customers took advantage of this fee waiver, amounting to over $255,000 in savings for Maryland businesses. Governor Hogan and SDAT also automatically extended the filing deadline to October 31st for homeowners and renters tax credit applications. When they would otherwise have been unable to, more than 9,000 Maryland homeowners and 2,000 renters were able to apply for these tax credits. And given the continued threat posed to our communities by COVID-19, our real property offices will be conducting property assessment appeals virtually in 2021. Outfitted with new customer-friendly technology, our department has been hard at work to make it easier than ever to file appeals online and to make those appeals heard. I would like to offer a special thanks to Special Secretary Wendy Peters for your inspired leadership of the Governor's Smart Growth Subcabinet, and for extending this invitation to all of us today to share with us, or to share with the audience, what we've been doing during this COVID-19 outbreak. So thank you very much for having us.
Great. Well, thank you very much for that update. We've been checking the box, and to date, we don't have any questions. We can move on. We have two really additional exciting presentations, and if you have not submitted questions now, you can hold them and we can have them submitted as we move into the open forum. But I thank all of my colleagues that just presented updates. We are definitely on the roadmap to recovery, and I appreciate the work that is happening across the administration. I can also say that under Governor Hogan's leadership, our administration has really been focused on promoting affordable, reliable, and cleaner energy for all of Marylanders. And with that, it's kind of exciting to introduce Director Mary Tung, who will give us a presentation on energy decarbonization and resiliency in the built environment. Thank you, Director Tung.
Thank you very much. I'm making some adjustments here. Now I'm trying to figure out, I'm supposed to turn on a screen.
Okay, John, can you, are we?
Yeah, John, I'm sorry. I don't see where I'm supposed to.
Okay, well, we have a second. We can make it work out.
Dr. Tung, did you put your PowerPoint in slide mode yet?
Oh, that's what the problem is.
Yeah, because we can see your
box here. There we go.
We don't see it yet. Now you'll just have to change your screen to monitor 2 in the GoToWebinar software under sharing.
Okay, I got show screen.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, there we go. It didn't come up before. Okay, got it.
There you go. You're good to go. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, John. I knew when we got to that, I might have some issues. I don't know if I can make this go away.
I think it looks, it's on the screen. It seems fine.
Are you seeing the box? I don't know why.
No, none of us will see the box. The box can stay wherever it's at. It's invisible to the system.
That's all I want to know. Thank you, Special Secretary Peters, and thank you, John, for your help. This is really a good timing for this. We're in the middle of a large surge, and as everyone's mentioned, we're hoping we see, and we do see the light at the end of the tunnel here. But the effects will continue from COVID. So we're all working very hard to try to minimize the effects as much as we can. At MEA, we're sort of on the periphery of the fight for COVID, but we have done a few things to try to ease things out, particularly for local governments and businesses that are struggling. We are adjusting our time periods for repayments of loans, and we are also doing extensions of times for grants because a lot of folks can't get the contractors in. They need to get in a timely basis. Permits aren't being issued in a timely basis because some folks weren't at work because of COVID. So we've been doing some of that at MEA to try to ease things a little bit. But on the other fronts we've been doing, and this particularly with snow falling, at least where I live, it's falling a lot with big flakes right now, and the roads are horrible. Resiliency is really very, very important for everyone to try to keep the electrons flowing. I mean, if we're in the middle of an emergency, we definitely have, we need power. And without power, it gets a lot worse. So MEA, for those of you that aren't familiar, is your energy office. We're focused on clean energy, affordability, reliability, and as I said, energy is integral to the safety, prosperity, health, and comfort, and enjoyment in our culture, in our society, and also in everyday life. MEA's list of priorities, and we're a fairly small agency, but our list of priorities continue to grow with our new resiliency program. The capacity to recover quickly from difficult times is really important, especially now. And in terms of hazards over the last 20 years, Maryland has been impacted by over $39 billion events, 39 in quotes, $billion events, flooding, drought, severe storms, winter storms, in each, a consistent energy supply is essential. So that's what we're trying to do. Trying to go to next slide here. There we go. So here's a picture of some of the team at, I believe this is Mako. Or MML, can't remember which one this one is. But maybe next year, maybe we'll have Mako and MML again, and we'll be able to see each other in person. So what we're looking at, obviously, are critical services, healthcare in particular, but there are a lot of critical services that we're targeting. Resilience is more than just hazards. It's also the ability to support the fabric of a community by controlling cost insurance, ensuring reliability and equitable service availability, creating clean energy jobs, and more. Few services are needed more than healthcare. And as the pop-up here suggests, failure is not an option. We concentrate on on-site fuel and backup energy and so forth. And as you know, critical services isn't just healthcare, although that's a big part of it, especially now with COVID. Each event teaches us new lessons, the current pandemic being one of them, which is unfortunately teaching us new lessons about how maintaining full capacity is essential and how facilities are managed will change, such as greater ventilation rates and so forth. And also on the supply side, you know, the employees that are there to put the lines back up in the case of lines that are down in a storm, that they're not sick either. So we've got a lot of lessons we're learning, unfortunately, in this pandemic, as well as every storm event that comes through. Healthcare, as we all know, is a system is facing increasing pressure. We must also think about its tendrils, the data systems which supply patient insurance information. Are they equally resilient? What about smaller and distributed facilities such as urgent care or dialysis services, which are also essential? So we think a lot about this, and we've got a couple of different projects that we've been working on and have worked on that are listed here. The Baltimore-Washington Medical Center, a facility that Governor Hogan toured shortly before the pandemic, in the previous picture was a picture from that visit. We installed combined heat and power, reducing costs while increasing resiliency. The combined heat and power uses natural gas extremely efficiently and can combine with the facility's other generators to support the facility. So the waste heat is used for thermal load if necessary. It can be converted to air conditioning, can be converted to electricity. They take what normally would be a 30 to 35% efficient generator and transforms to 70 to 80% and sometimes higher. So a lot of savings there. The Montgomery County Public Safety Headquarters facility, which you're seeing right here, seamlessly integrated solar, CHP, natural gas generators, electric vehicle charging, and efficiencies to support the community with police, public safety, homeland security, and transportation administration. It was the first of its kind energy as a service project in Maryland, where a third party owns and operates the system while the county benefits from the improved services. And one of my personal favorites are shown here, as I really like the parking canopy. Those that are parked under there today would second that. Not only are they generating electricity, but they also provide protection from the elements. And yes, solar panels, even on a cloudy day, can generate power. Its sister facility is the Montgomery County Correctional and Rehabilitation Facility in Boyds, Maryland, which employs similar technologies under a similar agreement. A shout out to Secretary Green may be in order here, because without his support, this project would not have occurred. So we often work with other agencies on these projects. Resiliency Hubs is another program, and it provides basic services locally to provide comfort, resources, and communications near where people work and live. The Power 52 powerhouse in Baltimore, South Baltimore, combines solar and batteries to support its community. They have a refrigerator there so people can put their medication in. One time when the power went out, it goes out quite often there. They set up grills in front and were able to cook because people's cooking supply went out as well. So these are really important community gathering areas. And we like to concentrate on low and moderate income communities for these. Another project underway is listed on the slide here is the St. Jude's Regional Catholic School, and it will provide similar services to the powerhouse. Resilient Maryland. Microgrids and systems involving multiple changes to how energy is supplied and managed are complex. They require substantial analysis, stakeholder engagement to sound policy and business case for organizational users. To help, we launched the Resilient Maryland program as a pilot in 2020. And this proved to be one of our most popular new programs. We knew there was need and pent-up demand. We had no idea how much that actually would be. We provide grants to help establish the groundwork for advanced energy systems such as microgrids, advanced CHP, and resiliency hubs. Advanced CHP is CHP plus resiliency. Our other programs can provide further capital support. 14 awards in fiscal year 20, totaling over $1 million. We expect similar demand in fiscal year 21. And we've got a couple examples here on the slide. So we try to look at different areas of Maryland. So we have a campus-wide campus scale-wide microgrid program going on in Frostburg. Groundswell is a really good collaborative effort with the city of Baltimore, and then the Smart Electric Power Alliance, which is a lot of different partners here: Baltimore Gas and Electric, City of Annapolis, SEPA. So this is a really cool project. So this slide comes from, this is a CHP project that went in at the Peninsula Regional Medical Center. The governor was there to flip the switch for their combined heat and power. This meant a lot more than just power to the hospital. It's on-site generation. It provides them resiliency, but it also allows them to stay islanded off from the grid so that when they go to power the grid up again after an outage, they don't have to worry about powering the hospital, which is a huge load. So once the power is up and supplied to the community, then they can bring on the hospital load. So this has a lot of, these programs have a lot of pluses that go far beyond just the benefits to the community. Many, if not all, of our programs support resilience, many by providing valuable capital. And our energy efficiency programs help organizations manage energy, improving economic resilience and energy independence, and extending power and energy resources. That healthcare and energy resources. The data center energy efficiency program in particular helps bolster resources that healthcare facilities are increasingly dependent on, as I mentioned earlier. Combined heat and power, as previously noted, helps expand on-site energy production, reducing costs, providing backup capacity, lower overall emissions. Solar is integral as the sun is an inexhaustible, for practical purposes, except for our cloudy days, resource, and coupled with energy storage can help keep facilities running and extend on-site fuels and power. Our portfolio of solar program resiliency hub programs can help. The state's energy storage tax credit, the first of its kind in the nation, helps expand markets for storage, which can benefit many commercial organizations as well as vulnerable residents. Stepping into the controversy, our Maryland Energy Investment Program provided valuable incentives in fiscal year 20 to support expansion of natural gas to parts of the state as well as gas conversions. While natural gas, with the exception of renewable natural gas, is certainly a fossil fuel, it provides tremendous opportunities for improved air quality, efficient, low carbon technologies such as CHP and other benefits. Natural gas also diversifies the fuel mix in terms of supply and distribution assets. In other words, better resiliency. You're not trucking propane on snowy, icy roads to a facility. And the availability of multiple fuels bolsters physical and economic resilience while promoting affordability. We continue to work with all of these projects. And wrapping up, we've come a long way. After we say goodbye to 2020, I think we'll all be celebrating the end of 2020. Resiliency will continue to be a priority for MEA. So I invite you to ask any questions you might have, and be happy to answer those. And I believe those will probably come at the end. So I'd like to turn it back to the to Secretary Peters.
Thank you, Dr. Tung. We do have one question, and you may not be the agency that can fully answer it, but we're going to start with you and see what MEA has to do with it. The question is, I anticipate some dialogue on broadband infrastructure from irrigation and agriculture, telehealth, and access online improvements are impacted by COVID. What department does this fall under? And so I don't know if you have any suggestion, and we have other state agencies that, of course, we can ask them to weigh in as well. And if they have a comment, they can indicate that they have something, and we will unmute them. If so they should indicate in the question box that they can add to your possible response. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Broadband is one of those really critical areas, particularly in the eastern part of our state and the western part of our state. And they fall under actually the Public Service Commission, which I don't believe is on right now. They regulate to some extent broadband, or they regulate maybe the companies that would be working on broadband. And this is the problem with broadband is private industry has stepped up to the plate to basically work on broadband throughout the state. But like any other type of service, it's harder to provide in a rural area than it is in a more densely populated area. So I don't really have much in the way of answers for that. I know there's a lot of efforts going on throughout the state, and it has been a priority for Governor Hogan to get broadband for all the reasons we've talked about here. You know, if you're trying to do, you know, you're trying to coordinate energy, you're trying to, you know, just simple task of checking on your system at home if you have that capability. Broadband is really important. It's really important for data centers. You know, without broadband, they wouldn't be able to survive either. It's really, really important for industry. Commercial and industrial locations. So MEA doesn't actually handle it. It doesn't come on our purview. So I'm hoping someone on the call can give a little bit more of an answer. If not, we'll forward the question on to the Public Service Commission. It should be able to get back to the person who asked the question and get you more information.
Thank you, Doc. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
This is Carol Gilbert from the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development. We are the sort of home base for Mr. Kenrick Gordon, and I put his email in the dialogue section. He is the director of the Governor's Office of Broadband, and so he would be a good lead contact for any questions on broadband statewide.
I would just also add that certainly, you know, with the teleworking and virtual schooling and the things that we've experienced as a result of COVID, it certainly highlighted the importance of why Governor Hogan has focused so much on expansion of broadband and making sure that we continue to fund and have that broadband infrastructure in place. And we saw firsthand how important it is. And we're pleased with the work certainly that Mr. Gordon is doing in reaching out and collaborating with local jurisdictions and making sure that we continue to finalize that broadband infrastructure. If there are additional questions, we can certainly direct them directly to him. But certainly the effects of COVID has shown us even more so how important that need is.
Thank you. The one other question for Dr. Tung regarding offshore wind energy systems. Have the enforceable policies of the Maryland Coast Zone Management Program been updated to include this new energy source? And could you provide a contact information for who prepares federal consistency review on projects moving through the federal EIS process? And this is from Ocean City.
I'm not sure what exactly, I kind of missed the beginning part of the question as to what was a commission. I'm sorry.
So I'll repeat. It says, regarding the offshore wind energy systems, have the enforceable policies of the Maryland Coastal Zone Management Program been updated to include this new energy source? And could you provide a contact information for who prepares federal consistency review on projects moving through the federal EIS process? And this is from Bill Neville in Ocean City. And if you don't have a good answer or need to have some additional information, we will answer this information to forward that information answer to Mr. Neville.
It would be BOEM, the federal government under BOEM is kind of in charge of what goes on out there, but DNR would have a lot of the answers for coastal marine type answers there. But the federal government is in charge of the lease area itself, and they work in conjunction with DNR and other states, honestly, up and down the Atlantic coast and in the wind area. So we could provide a good contact information for them. I know we're in pretty close communication with Ocean City on a lot of these issues, and I know the developers are as well, but we can provide some information for you. I don't know if anybody on the line from DNR, if anybody's on the line from DNR, and if they are, if they have any answers for that, but we rely on our colleagues from DNR and federal partners to work on that.
Okay, that's the last question. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Special Secretary Peters.
Great, thank you very much. And thank you, Director Tung. We appreciate that information. One thing that's become clear, certainly from the very beginning of our administration, is the importance of collaboration and innovation and how it allows us to move things forward and get things done. I'm excited to welcome Deputy Secretary Earl Lewis and the administrator from the Motor Vehicle Administration, Christine Neiser, to talk about the coming vehicle technology revolution. Deputy Secretary Lewis.
I'm right here, showing my screen. Let me know when you all see it.
We're getting there.
See it, but we don't see your slideshow yet.
There you
Got it.
Perfect.
Got it now?
Yes, thank you.
All right, should I go ahead and get started?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Well, good afternoon. I'm Deputy Secretary Earl Lewis. I'm happy to be here representing the Maryland Department of Transportation. Today, I'm going to give an overview of some of the initiatives happening statewide with respect to emerging technologies. In particular, I'm going to talk about zero-emission vehicles. Chrissy Neiser, the MBA administrator, will follow with details of our CAV activities and some safety initiatives. We'll spend a little time understanding why we are focusing on ZEV, the ZEV market, and MDOT's role. We'll also talk about activities that are happening throughout Maryland, our region, and the nation. We hope this will inspire you to get involved and to collaborate with MDOT and our sister agencies as we plan for and begin to implement our future transportation system. To begin, let's talk about why zero-emission vehicles are so important. While we are making progress on our emission reduction goals, the transportation sector represents will represent approximately 43% of total projected statewide emissions in 2030. This slide illustrates MDOT's current statewide on-road emissions modeling and our GGRA goals, or Greenhouse Gas Reduction Act goals. Focus on the blue, red, and green bars here. The blue bar represents business as usual, or projection based on historical data. The red bar shows the deep reductions we can achieve through the implementation of cleaner vehicle technologies. This still puts us above our 40% by 2030 reduction goal. To get below the 40% reduction, we also need our metropolitan planning organization plans and programs, additional investments in emerging technologies, and innovative transportation solutions. This graphic further illustrates the impact that ZEVs and improved fuel economy will have on emissions reductions from VMT. We need to continue to work on VMT reduction. We also know that emissions reductions from VMT will be difficult to achieve as vehicles emit less greenhouse gases over time. As technology improves, we begin to better understand the benefits of policies like remote work. The transportation landscape will continue to evolve. MDOT is using innovation and the latest technology to make progress toward our goals. With these changes comes equity opportunities. An equitable transportation system must be designed to not only improve mobility, but also to decrease pollution like greenhouse gases. Addressing climate change and providing public health benefits while enhancing economic opportunities are our top priorities. Look toward the future with that in mind. I thought it might be helpful here to provide a little context on the history of ZEV in Maryland, and we would be happy to share this graphic following the presentation. This timeline begins with Maryland's adoption of the California emission standards and the original light-duty ZEV goals in 2007, which became effective in model year 2011 for vehicles for sale. Also in 2007, the Maryland Commission on Climate Change was established. As you can see, Maryland has made great strides since then and is continuing to strive towards ZEV and greenhouse gas reduction goals under Governor Hogan, with the 2016 Greenhouse Gas Reduction Act establishing the 40% by 2030 reduction goal and the continuation of ZEVIC, the Zero Emission Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Council. Most recently this year, MDE led the effort on the signing of the medium and heavy duty ZEV MOU, which we will discuss in more detail later in the presentation. Now we're going to take a look at a brief history. After we look at a history of ZEV in Maryland and the role ZEV plays in reducing transportation sector emissions, let's dive into the ZEV market, beginning with light-duty vehicles. I know this map will be difficult to see, but you can access an interactive version of it on the ZEVIC website. You can see our EV corridors, the density of EV ownership, and the density of charging stations here. Note that Central Maryland is boosting the largest concentration of ownership and stations, but we are beginning to see much more interest and adoption on the Eastern Shore and in Western and Southern Maryland as well. As of November 30th, 2020, we have 28,575 ZEVs registered in Maryland. This includes battery electric vehicles and plug-in hybrids. We also wanted to note that there are more light-duty vehicles available for purchase today than there's ever been in Maryland. As I am sure you have seen, the options continue to increase and get more diverse. I think yesterday there was a presentation that both Chrissy Nizer and Secretary Ben Grumbles presented at, as well as MTA Administrator Kevin Quinn by the Motor Vehicle Transportation Subcommittee of the Environment and Transportation Committee, which shared information on some of the future increases in vehicle models that are going to be on the market in the coming years. You can learn more about what is available for purchase also in Maryland by visiting our marylandev.org website. On the infrastructure side, Maryland boasts 2,450 outlets, a ratio of about 12 vehicles per publicly available outlet, which is exactly where we want to be, between the 10 and 13 vehicles per outlet range. Before jumping into medium and heavy duty vehicles, I'd like to mention that we are also looking into and working to make progress on the deployment of other types of electric vehicles, such as electric scooters and bicycles. We've also worked to remove barriers to the adoption of low-speed electric vehicles. Chrissy's going to talk about this a little bit later when she gives her presentation. As many of you are aware, in July 2020, Maryland, along with 15 other jurisdictions, signed the medium and heavy-duty zero-emission vehicle MOU. The goal of the MOU is to achieve 30% ZEV's sales of medium and heavy duty vehicles in Maryland by 2030. We're going to be working very closely with stakeholders and communities to implement the MAU and to begin transitioning our fleet in a smart and sustainable way. This also involves working with the other states as well as NESCOM, which MDE is our lead coordinator with NESCOM, but others listen on many of their discussions as well. The graphics on this slide are from MDOT's recently completed truck parking study. We have been working on developing a better understanding of truck parking throughout our state, and we see a great opportunity here to address both our truck parking needs and to make sure we are installing adequate and accessible ZEV infrastructure for the medium and heavy duty fleets of the future. In fact, our truck parking study includes the installation of ZEV infrastructure among its goals. The Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Council was established by state legislation in 2011. In 2019, the membership responsibilities and reporting requirements of EVIC were expanded to include zero-emission vehicles and fuel cell electric vehicles. To reflect the expanded responsibilities of the council, EVIC was renamed the Maryland Zero Emission Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Council, or ZEVIC. I'm pleased to have chaired this group of dedicated professionals for the last 5 years. I'm also proud of the progress we have made to date as a team. We have been recognized regionally and nationally for our efforts. We feel it's important to maintain focus and to continue moving the ball forward. To that end, I've shared here our Council 2021 priorities, which include a redoubled effort or focus on diversity and equity, continued education outreach, and the incorporation of a more holistic approach to ZEV that will cover diverse technologies and vehicles. Federal Highway has issued 4 rounds of alternative fuel corridor designations from 2016 to 2019. MDOT has successfully led Maryland's application development process and submission for every round, which has resulted in the designation of 21 EV charging corridors in Maryland. We have established alternative fuel corridors throughout the state, from our urban and suburban areas to our more rural areas. MDOT is also working on a signage plan to ensure that ZEV infrastructure is identified where appropriate along our corridors. We know range anxiety or the fear that charging is limited or not available is very real. These corridors and the corresponding signage provide much needed peace of mind for Marylanders as well as visitors and travelers throughout our state, including those that travel through our state. We're also hopeful that our proactive efforts lead to potential funding opportunities related to corridor charging in the near future. Under the Biden infrastructure plan, there is support for more aggressive national vehicle electrification policies. This includes a goal of the deployment of 500,000 EV charging stations nationwide. MDOT has taken the lead in public outreach as well as local outreach on zero-emission vehicles. Unfortunately, due to COVID this year, we've not been able to reach out to people by attending events in their communities. As of early 2020, MDOT attended 25 events and connected with over 7,000 people over the previous year or so. We're using the data we have gathered at these events to get a better idea of what people understand about ZEV and what they don't understand. This helps us with providing education and tailoring our communications in a way that makes sense to communities and allows them to actually see and touch the technology. We're also learning more about their preferences. It won't surprise anyone that our data indicates people are eager for the arrival of more zero-emission vehicle models, especially SUVs and pickup trucks in particular. We've also been working through ZEVIC, providing education and outreach to the Maryland General Assembly as well. This slide shows our 2020 legislative handout, which is currently being updated for 2021. It was designed to highlight our progress and to identify areas where we can use help addressing challenges associated with EV-ready building codes, equity, the right to charge, and parking enforcement, among other issues. All these areas are universally acknowledged in the ZEV community, but often take a backseat because they are not talked about or well understood by broader audiences. We're hopeful that our efforts and attendance at events like this will actually help move the situation to a better state. We have big environmental goals at MDOT, and we've already taken important steps to reach those goals, including newer, cleaner transit vehicles and steps to increase electric vehicle use throughout the state. And at MDOT, we believe it's important to lead by example. We've actively worked to put together a plan to replace vehicles with more fuel efficient and zero emission vehicles, and we are in the process of finalizing this fleet innovation plan. The plan began with developing an inventory of our entire fleet, identifying vehicles as candidates for replacement. This is also one of the objectives coming out of the Maryland Commission on Climate Change recommendations regarding the 40 by 30 plan. 214 vehicles are currently eligible for replacement based on the age of 10 years or greater, and 570 additional vehicles will be eligible for replacement over the next 5 years. So there's obviously going to be some opportunities if we can find the funding. Now that we've covered some of the areas that MDOT is working on with respect to ZEVs, I wanted to provide a very basic overview of how key state agencies are working together to ensure strategic ZEV adoption infrastructure deployment throughout Maryland. MDE is responsible for overseeing Maryland's adoption of and involvement with the ZEV MOUs. They also administer the funding for the VW settlement, which includes about $11 million in funding that's available for the installation of ZEV infrastructure. MEA works on some excellent incentive and rebate programs as well. Among them is a recently launched Clean Fuels Technology Assistance Fund, which is designed to help local entities plan for and consider fleet turnover to ZEV. We are excited to be working so closely with our sister agencies and others. I'll give a brief overview of some of our more recent collaborative efforts. In 2019, the Public Service Commission allowed the utilities to enter the EV charging arena under a 5-year pilot program. MDOT is working closely with the PSC and other partners through the PC44 EV work group and ZVIC to ensure successful deployment of infrastructure over the remainder of the pilot program period. The map on this slide illustrates the number of charging stations that are planned for installation throughout the state by service area. A total of 5,046 stations, residential, multifamily, or public installation. Utilities are making progress daily, and at the time of our 2020 ZVIC annual report, a total of 453 utility infrastructure rebates have been issued. Regarding local ZEV outreach, early in 2020, MDOT issued 2 surveys designed to better understand what local partners need in terms of communication and resources surrounding ZEV deployment. One of those surveys included a mapping feature, which allowed respondents to tell us where they would like to see infrastructure, as well as where it is needed most. Following the deployment of 2 surveys, MDOT, MDE, and MEA conducted a series of local outreach webinars on ZEV. Webinars were designed to share useful information and to hear about opportunities, challenges, and successes at the local level. We had over 150 participants attend the webinars and share their unique perspectives. Illustrated in this slide, participants ranked procurement and incentives as their highest priorities. We also heard that all participants were interested in continuing this particular dialogue. We urge you to visit MDOT's ZVIC website to stay in touch as we plan quarterly follow-ups beginning in 2021. As mentioned earlier in the presentation, MDOT, MDE, and MEA continue to dedicate and be dedicated to robust stakeholder and community involvement, which also takes dedication of resources, which all the agencies have done. This includes a commitment to communicating and working together on the medium and heavy duty ZEV MOU. To that end, MDE, MEA, and MDOT held 2 introductory webinars in November of 2020 to introduce the MOU and the Maryland Clean Truck Planning Framework. The webinars were also designed to gather information and to allow for audience questions. We had a total of 86 non-staff attendees for the webinars. The graphics in this slide illustrate some of the preliminary polling that we got in terms of feedback received during one of the webinars. The results indicated that the largest audience was from the government public sector, with pretty even distributions among the other categories. We also heard that this particular audience identified funding as the greatest challenge. No surprise there, that needs to be addressed in the ZEV action plan. We'll be holding more targeted outreach and listening sessions in 2021, so please visit MDE's ZEV website for more information. With that, I'd like to thank you for your time today. As illustrated throughout my presentation, MDOT and our sister agencies are working very hard on integrating emerging technologies into our transportation system. We see a great deal of opportunity in the areas of safety, improvements, and environmental benefits, including in the areas of environmental justice and mobility. We've included some helpful links here and encourage you to join us at our next ZVIC meeting in January. To follow us on social media at our Maryland EV site, and to consider attending one of our local outreach webinars in 2021. If you have any follow-up questions or like any additional information, please reach out to me or Colleen Turner. You see our contact information is shared here. At this point, I'd like to turn the presentation over to my colleague, Chrissy Nizer, to discuss some of the work that's been happening in Maryland under the CAB working group, which she co-chairs with MDTA Administrator Jim Ports. Thanks. All yours, Chrissy.
Thank you, Deputy Secretary Lewis. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, great. And I want to thank Secretary Peters for inviting us to attend and present on these topics today in terms of innovation and transportation. And it's really timely to follow along on the presentation related to electric vehicles, because connected and automated vehicles, frankly, are specifically linked to that in terms of, ensuring that the technology is there going forward for these vehicles. And so excited to be able to present this to you. Sorry, one slide too fast. All right, our CAV vision in Maryland is for safe, efficient, and equitable technology. I want to make sure that safety always is at the forefront, but that we collaborate with our partners who are interested in researching, testing, and implementing CAVs in Maryland. I think one important point is we talk about automated vehicles. There are 5 levels of automation that have been established by the SAE, which lays out standards from a lower level of automation to a fully automated system, as you might think about in a car that's fully driving itself without any human engagement. And so there are various steps along that spectrum, and it is a continuum. We will work through the challenges as we increase the amount of automated functionality that are in vehicles. In Maryland, we formed a CAV working group in 2015 to serve as that central point of coordination. The great thing about that is it includes not only MDOT business units, but other state agencies, insurance, aging, disabilities, and commerce, as well as planning. State elected officials who are on those transportation-related committees, our public safety and law enforcement, clearly a critical component, as well as county and city planning organizations and leaders, car manufacturers, and academia. So in addition to the CAV working group, we also have various technical and subgroups, from emergency responders to our CAV freight subgroup. Obviously, that's a critical component of transportation in Maryland, and we want to make sure that that is part of our thought process as we move forward from a planning perspective. This is really very timely because we just released our CAV strategic framework for the state of Maryland on Monday. That really is a call to action for all agencies to champion the development of implementation plans that align with the CAV strategic framework and coordination through the CAV working group. I want to go through that framework very quickly and the major components, including public education, planning and policy, early deployment and testing, infrastructure and workforce. I will say we've received over 600 comments that went into the formation of this framework, and we really appreciate comments ranging from state and local government officials to private sector partners to universities and research entities. And so we feel like this framework is a really good sense of where we need to go as a state as we look at these issues of emerging technology. Public education and outreach, obviously this is important because we recognize that there is a lack of information and frankly in some cases concern about what automated vehicles in particular mean to the general public, how it will be deployed, and even connected vehicle technology, what that looks like and how information is shared. We want to make sure we have a diverse audience when we're communicating various initiatives and leveraging existing avenues to get that information out to the general public as well as to our partners. Planning and policy, we want to facilitate opportunities through the CAV working group establish clear goals and metrics for CAVs in Maryland, looking at what barriers are in place, how do we address and remove those barriers to really promote the idea that Maryland is open for business when it comes to testing in this regard. We want to make sure CAV is incorporated into planning and policy documents. That's really important. It started to happen at the Department of Transportation, but we want to make sure that it is throughout the state as well, and then the local level too. Establish policies on cross collaboration and open data sharing. This is important because there is a lot of data that is now part of vehicle operation. How do we share that data in a way we can learn, in a way we can improve infrastructure, but also protect the rights of the vehicle manufacturers to confidential and proprietary data, and also protect the individual as well. So that's a very important issue. Early employment and testing. So this is an area we've been active in, but we want to continue to expand that. But doing so, we want to make sure we're taking in consideration public perception and making adjustments as appropriate. We do want to, as I mentioned earlier, really prioritize freight-focused CAV strategies in the short term and leverage really the deep bench of academic excellence. We're so fortunate in Maryland to have strong partners in that regard. Also want to look at non-traditional research and partnerships we could have there. In terms of infrastructure, we need to establish baseline operation, what is necessary from an infrastructure standpoint to make sure these vehicles can operate safely, what's acceptable from a downtime standpoint. We want to continue to be engaged in the national conversation and really learn from others. It is evolving so quickly in this area. We want to stay on the front lines of that. We want to dedicate resources and create partnerships to build out the communication infrastructure. This is really important because the infrastructure has to enable that communication to occur in order to really reap the benefits of especially the connected vehicle technology. And asset management and software configuration management, both very important components as well. Workforce. This is something we think about a lot in terms of how do we evolve the workforce to be able to interface and excel in this new environment. When we were meeting in person with the CAV working group, we were actually bringing some of the technology to each of the meetings. We thought that was important to allow that actual interaction, not only by our employees, but also the members of the working group with that. We need to address recruitment and retention gaps, as well as establish what does the future staffing look like and what fields do we need training, not only for existing employees, but new employees as well. So again, the CAV strategic framework is really a call to action to champion the development of these plans. How do we push the plans throughout the state? This is not a Department of Transportation plan. It really is a plan for the entire state of Maryland. We are proud to have Governor Hogan join us in releasing that on Monday, and really excited to see the next steps that will be taken in that regard. We continue to maintain that national engagement. Lots of our partners on this side, I won't go through them, but certainly important to continue the conversation at a national level as you look at vehicles crossing state lines, especially here on the East Coast. This is just a slide that shows some of the CAV activities. You can tell it's been a very busy time over the last 5 years in this area, from initial pilots, which I'll talk a little bit about, and then releasing the framework here in 2020. We are proud to be a part of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration AV test and AV tracker. We were the first state to participate in that pilot, and this is a way to help with transparency and showing the public where testing is happening. It's a public website where folks can see exactly what's going on, what entities are involved in that, and so the website is right there if you want to go and take a look and see some of the exciting things that are happening right in Maryland. Speaking of transparency, this is a map that we have on our website that shows locations that are available for testing in Maryland. This is something that the manufacturers communicated to us would be helpful, and again helps with the transparency and call to action for folks to partner with us. We've got an expression of interest and permit process to allow people interested in working with Maryland to reach out. This is really unique throughout the country and something we're proud of that's been emulated. Expression of interest just means you're interested in partnering with us. The highly automated vehicle permit obviously means you're interested in testing on the roadway. There are various requirements and a stringent review that goes through with the technical committee prior to any vehicle being issued that highly automated vehicle permit. And each permit is given a unique identifier, just like you would have a tag on a regular vehicle, so law enforcement can identify it. And we make sure that the folks who are in the vehicle, operating the vehicle, are certified as well. So I just want to briefly touch on the two main partners we have today. Local Motors has an automated low-speed shuttle called Ollie that was operating at National Harbor, but also operating in Montgomery County with robotics research. And so that was an exciting pilot that allowed the general public to actually interact with the technology, which again helps get that awareness and public education out there. Also, Steer is a woman-owned business that developed a great technology for autonomous parking. They've done several deployments, including at BWI Thurgood Marshall Airport, as well as with MTA at some of their park-in rides. Not only do we have those activities at the statewide level, but I wanted to call out some of the counties that have been very involved. Prince George's County has made many investments, Montgomery County as well, making investments in infrastructure, as well as Howard County, to try to support some of the efforts for testing that are underway. The local jurisdictions are really our partners, and we make sure anytime a permit is issued, we engage the local government in that approval process prior to that being approved to move forward. Platooning is another exciting area where the vehicles can be connected. The trucks can be connected through GPS technology. Obviously, that allows a great deal of efficiency in terms of fuel usage, which dovetails into our prior conversations, as well as safety issues in terms of human error that could occur. And so M.MBA will be considering legislation during the coming session to allow for truck platooning to happen in Maryland, and we are excited about the potential that will allow for as well going forward. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation, but Deputy Secretary Lewis and myself will be happy to answer any questions that might be out there.
Thank you very much for your presentation, and thank you also for your leadership in this important area. It's a very exciting time in Maryland, and we thank you for leading the way for us. It doesn't appear that we have any particular questions right now.
We have one question that was submitted. Has the initiative to have fleet trucks running off CNG still ongoing?
I'm not familiar with that particular initiative. I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's compressed natural gas vehicles.
Right. Yeah, we can certainly follow up. I'm not aware of that particular initiative unless Deputy Secretary Lewis is aware of it.
Yes, that is still ongoing.
Okay, that's the only question that's on there. We'll give a few more minutes for folks to give additional questions or questions in general to the whole subcabinet. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Special Secretary Peters, and I will let you know if there's any additional questions. Thus far, we have not received any, and I encourage folks that if they do have any questions of any of the state agency representatives that are on the line, for them to submit those questions at this time. Otherwise, we will wrap it up and let everyone get back to shoveling snow.
Thank you, Chuck. We'll hang out for a few minutes. This is the open forum for elected leaders and planning officials to discuss local government issues. We hold this pursuant to statute 2 times a year, and pleased to have the opportunity. But as you may have already noticed, everyone in this administration is quite accessible outside of even some of these public forums, and we pride ourselves in accessibility and responding to citizens and leaders' information and requests. So How are we doing, Chuck? Do we have any questions?
No other questions have been received so far. Again, if anyone wants to submit a question after the closure, they feel free to email me, chuck.boyd@maryland.gov, and I will gladly forward it to the appropriate agency, and we will certainly get you a response to your question.
And with that, I really would like to thank both Chuck Boyd and John Coleman for their assistance in putting on this webinar. There's a lot of behind the scenes work, and I appreciate how smoothly you handle all of this. I'd like to thank my colleagues in the administration, not only for your presentations today, but the valuable work and commitment that you have every day as we continue to work together. To the attendees, thank you very much for joining us. Again, we remain available by email or phone should you have any follow-up. Please stay safe, wash your hands, social distance, wear your mask, and I hope that each of you enjoy the holidays. With that, I think we'll conclude not only the public forum, but the Smart Growth Subcabinet meeting in general. Thank you all very much. We appreciate your time.